I love it that you travel together, that you're on this journey together. She's really involved with you in this. It's so incredible.
Well, it was the most enormous fun. I mean, it was very, very tiring at times, but it really did get incredibly exciting because after once about three-quarters of the way through the book, I found that new things would just turn up. For example, give you an example, the design of razors to shave. It's very important to the Minoans and their satellite peoples that they could shave properly. And so you find bronze razors all the way from the Great Lakes of America across this empire to India, almost exactly the same design. Everywhere you look, if you go to Stonehenge, look in the graves in Stonehenge, there are these razors. If you go to southwest Spain, there are the razors, and so on. So new things kept coming up, and about the last was the elephants. I just couldn't believe that there were really these dwarf elephants in Mediterranean islands, just as Plato described.
You mean they were brought there?
Yeah, they must have been, because strangely, elephants can swim. They're sluggish swimmers, and it takes a lot out of them, but only for short distances. So they could have swum from the mainland to some of the islands near the Turkish coast, but they couldn't possibly have swum to Cyprus. Now, these elephant skeletons have been found and dated 2000 BC in Cyprus. So the elephants in Cyprus must have been on board these ships, these Minoan ships, and therefore they must have been tame, because you can't have wild elephants rampaging around in a ship.
Unless they're looking for your book.
That's exactly what
I think that's the only way we could see that.
Yeah. Amazing.
You talk about a long-standing trade relationship between Crete and Egypt between 1991 BC and 1400 BC.
Yes.
How do we know that? I know you mentioned it in the book, but I want you to say it on the show.
Well, because you can tell that there was indeed that trading relationship, because inside the pharaoh's tombs, Egypt has a very well-chronicled history. So everyone knows the date of each particular pharaoh. There's no argument about that. So you can date the tombs of each pharaoh very accurately, and therefore you can date the painting very accurately. And the painting shows the Minoans bringing their gifts to the pharaohs from Crete and returning.
Gavin, how do you think that the ancient Egyptians built the pyramid? In other words, you just explained how they cut the stone, but how did they carry those tons and tons of materials to make the pyramids? How were they transported, do you think?
I don't know, really. By, I suppose, tree trunks, straight tree trunks with the bark peeled off, which they used as rollers, but I really don't know.
I've often wondered about that.
Yeah.
You also talk about that the Minoans had invented writing, and you said the Egyptians and the Sumerians were not there before. Explain that. I thought that was really provocative.
Well, the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians had writing.
Right.
I was talking in the context of Plato describing a literate state based on these islands.
Okay.
The Mesopotamians and the Egyptians and the Minoans were literate, all three of them, but the only ones who were based on islands were the Minoans. The Mesopotamians and the Egyptians were, of course, land-based civilizations.
My note was that you said the Minoans had invented writing.
Professor Sikritsis we're going to write a joint book about his deciphering of Linear A. And in that, I think he will say how he's decided the date of Linear A compared to Linear B.
Okay. Talk about the seals. The seals had inscriptions of Orion and the stars and stellar constellations. Talk about what these seals were on the ships.
There have been about 6,000 seals found at the Palace of Phaestos, which started off our adventure. Now, these seals were used by merchants to secure their goods. For example, this ship, the Uluburum ship, which was wrecked, was carrying a priceless load of copper and tin, which could make enough bronze to armor an entire army. Hundreds of thousands of people could be kitted out with what was this Uluburun ship was carrying. Now, if there was no way of securing the goods on board, the captain of the ship could just say, well, I'm going to sell this and pocket the money. Now, the way it was secured was that they had chests which they locked, and they sealed the lock with a seal made of wax or some soft material, which then was imprinted with the personal insignia in one way or another of the people who owned what they were locking up. So, and the seals then became, how would I put it, they became attributed to certain people. Certain wealthy merchants had seals which showed ships. Now, funny enough, the seals that showed ships go back to 3000 BC, and they show sophisticated sailing ships with quite advanced rigging. So you can tell from those seals, which have been dated, that the Minoans and Atlanteans did have ships 5,000 years ago which could sail, which pushes back the general view of maritime trade by about 1,000 years. So seals were an integral part of
the timeline
to enable people to trade in safety, in that they could stop their goods being stolen.
Were the seals also part of verifying any timelines?
Yes, they were. Of the 6,000 found at the Palace of Phaestos, I think about a third have been dated. And I don't think the dating's been challenged, so you can say for sure that they had seals in 3000 BC.
I cannot even imagine what you're sitting on, the implications, the synthesis of knowledge that you carry.
Kim, it's very kind of you to say so. I'd like to pay tribute to who's made it possible, which is certainly not me, in that we have this amazing website, gavinmenzies.net, which Ian Hudson, my colleague, has built up with Pedalo, the website designers, over the years. And as I say, we have around 2,000 people a day at its peak who come to the website. Now, this is a continuous, priceless source of knowledge. We print out everything that's of interest, and we've got 1,900 lever arch files of evidence, which has come to us in the past, since 2002, when my first book was published. And people criticize and suggest new things, but above all, we try and thank everyone who comes with evidence and record it and make use of it and push it back out to people. So this Google and website and so on and so forth is an incredibly important new tool for historians to use. And I think if I had to criticize professional historians, they're terribly slow in realizing what a revolution has been brought by having this amazing power of receiving and collating evidence at your disposal.
When we did a show last year on peer review, one of the things that was so exciting to me was that to understand the inner workings of peer review, and not to go through that again, everybody should listen to that show on peer review. It's a blockbuster.
Well, I really enjoyed doing it. I mean, I think peer review for historians, it might be necessary for physics or chemists or botanists or whatever, but for historians, it is an absolute catastrophe because peer review enables the most conservative people to squash any new ideas that they don't like. So they can create their own little patch of history, say between 1400 AD and 1410 AD. The expert will not allow anyone to come onto his patch and trample around. Well, that just is not conducive to historical research.
Nor is it conducive to the true realm of discovery.
No, absolutely not. I quite agree with you. know,